Pitter patter. Let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos podcast. Well, this will truly be one of the name, where it won't necessarily be solely focused on the Broncos because there was another team in the Mile High area, I should say, that dominated the news waves in the last 24 to 48 hours. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to dive into what is our training camp preview, getting you all geared up for training camp. We have a bit of a packed house tonight, as you can tell. But we have the full-time, I should say the full-time Manely Broncos residencies. Obviously, Matty's not here, but we have Brandon Miller over there in the top right. No relation, as we said, because it is the draft season, free agency season. No relation to Brandon Miller, the basketball player.
But full relation to Von Miller, the NFL player.
And then Jordan Lopez over there on the bottom right. And then he's been on the show before, and Brandon Stoll is over there on the bottom left. For anybody that does not know, me and Stoll went way back. We would do multiple different shows together on the college radio. In fact, we would actually even do one with the ever so famous Anthony Rodriguez, who does stuff over with KOA.
Yeah,
so we knew
he wasn't very good.
Yeah, we knew Anthony before he was a peacock, and before he was flying, even though you could argue he was kind of flying, but at that point anyway. But it's gonna be a fun show. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for MHRT Network. We are pushing for 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, it's gonna be a lot of fun. And make sure you follow these gents. We'll drop their handles at the very end of the show, but make sure you drop the handles. Brandon Stoll, if you haven't. And Brandon obviously is literally, his handle is literally in his username. Jordan, you can follow him at Jordan T. Lopez. It's gonna be a fantastic show. Well, with 4th of July coming up, it seems appropriate that we talk fireworks. And what better fireworks than the fact that the Denver Nuggets had possibly the biggest misdirection of all time, basically leading us to believe that they weren't going to make any moves. They were basically going to be running it back. They had this whole idea of co-GMing, which you rarely ever see, not just in the NBA, but like in sports in general. You rarely ever see the idea of co-GMing, and they hire John Wallace and Ben Tenzer. Ben Tenzer basically from the inside, and John Wallace from the good old familiar face of Tim Connolly with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So he comes in to the Denver Nuggets and basically co-GMing, and everybody just assumed due to their comments that they were going to be running it back. Psych! They were running it back, but it was going to be without a certain member of the core, and that would be Michael Porter Jr. So to kick things off, the Nuggets traded Michael Porter Jr., frankly, a move they probably should have made in terms of shedding off some big-time salary. They traded him to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson, and they also, I believe, traded away a 2032 unprotected first-round pick as well. So that was a trade that happened. And then the other trade was probably one of the greatest fleeces of the century, which was a player-for-player swap of Dario Saric for Jonas Valanciunas of Sacramento. Just a player-for-player swap for a player of Dario Saric who did absolutely nothing on the Denver Nuggets. And they signed Tim Hardaway Jr. From the Detroit Pistons, who had quite a year with the Detroit Pistons. And the other move that they made, it's escaping me.
Tim Hardaway, or you just said,
It's escaping. They made another one.
Well, no, Bruce Brown. Sorry.
Oh, of course. The hometown kid, if you will, is back after being gone for 2 years. That was actually a year or two after he left, and so he comes back for the vet minimum. And so it was a crazy whirlwind of the last 24 to 48 hours for the Denver Nuggets. So I will just kick it off with at least the basketball experts, and we'll dive in here. But Stoll and Jordan, I'll actually ask you, Jordan, just because again you have the weirdest fandom of all. But you being a Celtics fan and not being a Denver Nuggets fan, and an outside point of view, take us through your thoughts of the Denver Nuggets possibly blowing up the core, and then all the moves that they made.
Well, I mean, it's pretty hard to quote unquote blow up a core when your core is good enough with just one guy. I mean, that's how good Jokic is. But I mean, the guys they got obviously in the offseason right now, probably some of the better pieces you can surround Jokic with. I love Cam Johnson. He's been one of my favorite players to watch in the entire NBA. I love watching him at North Carolina just because of his jump shot and how pretty his form is. But I was very, very happy to see that Denver is surrounding Jokic now with the right guys, because I was actually a big person on saying, hey, the Nuggets are not surrounding him with the right type of players around him. And now it looks like they're finally getting to the point like, hey, we know the type of archetypes we need around Jokic, which is good. So hopefully this is the first year of many that they can start surrounding him with talent like this. And it's not just talent in general. It has to be specific stuff. And I think those guys are like a Cam Johnson, bringing back a Bruce Brown and stuff like that. So I do like what the Nuggets have done so far.
Stoll, let's go behind the glass, right? That's the phrase.
Yeah. I mean, look, so because of the new CBA rules, right? The new cap rules, the whole league has changed. So it was enough to not have that much depth, not have another all-star or whatever 2-3 years ago, because at that point, even though they had, I believe, just introduced the second apron at the year the Nuggets won the title, it wasn't really affecting teams right away, right? But now we're seeing the effects of it. And now more than ever before, depth matters a ton, right? In the past, it's like, hey, who's your top 3 guys? Who's your top 5 guys? Right? Are your top 5 guys better than their top 5 guys? Do you have the best player in the world? And if so, you're going to make a deep playoff run. You're probably going to win the title, right? Whoever has the best player, more than likely, they're going to win that series. It's different now. Depth matters. Obviously, Indiana showed that. OKC has showed that. And even with New York, they went out and got a little bit more depth, and that propelled them. Obviously, Boston had a ton of depth as well. So that's something that you could get away with before, with not having any, because you had the best player in the world. I mean, if you think about it, really, because I feel like a lot of people now, when you kind of think back on it, it's like, oh, the Nuggets had a ton of depth, but they didn't. When they won the title, they had Bruce Brown and Jeff Green playing off the bench. That was it. Yeah. They had a 7-man rotation, basically. At times, they would have Reggie Jackson play a little bit, but he barely played in the playoffs. So, in a ton of depth to none at all, and that's why they've been bounced 2 years in a row in a Game 7. It's just that the league has changed, and you need 7-8 guys at least, or 8 or 9 guys at least, to really make a run. You're not going to be able to do what Phoenix tried to do, putting 3 all-star level players or 2.5 all-star level players on a team and just say, we'll figure it out the rest. we can just bring in random guys and these 3 guys will carry us. It's not going to work anymore. So realizing that and going through this season, and I mean, you were a game away from beating the champs, right? So you weren't really that far away. I mean, realistically, a healthy Michael Porter Jr. with 2 arms, you might actually win that series against the Thunder. So it's not like they were really far away. It's just, it's more of, man, we just wish we had one more piece. And like, that's really what it was. So going out and adding Bruce Brown, adding Tim Hardaway Jr., adding Valanciunas, these are regular season moves to benefit the Nuggets, to where these guys probably won't play in the playoffs. I don't think Valanciunas will play in the playoffs. I don't think Tim Hardaway will play in the playoffs. I do think Bruce Brown will. Obviously, Cam Johnson will. But these are regular season moves that at least you're not forcing Jokic to play 40 minutes a game in the regular season, to where now he's having to play 47 minutes a game in the playoffs, and he can't carry you like how he should be able to. So these, to me, regular season moves. These aren't not splashy moves, even though it feels like it to Nuggets fans and local media. It feels like a lot, but when you zoom out, it's really not much. Bruce has really struggled the last 2 years without Denver. Tim Hardaway, he's 33, 34. He can shoot. That's about it, right? Valanciunas is not a very good defender. We
may have,
but they are gonna, they're at least going to allow Jokic and Jamal and Gordon die by the time you get to the playoffs. So that's the biggest thing with this. The Cam Johnson move, though, is completely different.
Yeah. Brandon, what is your thoughts? And just kind of like, because you and I were texting, a lot during it, but it was a lot to process in the last 24 to 48 hours for sure.
I have to start here. I'm pretty sure that an arrest warrant has just been issued for Calvin Booth. Because, like, for real, dude, like, what were you doing for the past 5 years?
Well, actually,
that's just...
I do kind of want to defend Booth a little bit. I'm not a big fan of Booth. However, he did bring in KCP. He did bring in Bruce Brown, and they won the title.
Oh, I'm not saying I don't give him credit for that. But...
Right, and then they lost Bruce Brown, but they could not pay Bruce Brown. They literally, unless he had taken more than half of a pay cut, you couldn't keep him. So it was impossible. And then the KCP thing has been talked about a ton. They could have technically had done that. Oh, it's like, well, if they had signed KCP, do they beat OKC and win the title? Maybe, but MPJ is probably still hurt. Aaron Gordon's still banged up. So, like, I don't know if they beat the Pacers, let alone Minnesota. But re-signing KCP would have put them in above the second apron. And at that, or in the second apron. And at that point, you would not have been able to make any moves this year to help the team. You would have been stuck, or you would have had to really blow it up, kind of like what Boston has done, having to trade Porzingis for not really that much, having to kind of give away Drew Holiday. Like, or what Milwaukee has done, right? They had to cut Damian Lillard, and they have the biggest cap hit in NBA history because of that. So like entering that second apron limits you so much that they would have been really stuck if they had re-signed KCP. Do they win the title with them? I don't know. I'd rather stay out of that second apron, to be honest.
For sure. And like, I know that there are things that were, I guess, outside of his control to a certain extent, but and I don't know exactly who made the decisions that were with like Najee and Pickett and everything with that. But I just feel like relying on so much unproven young players and like having to play Jokic 50 minutes a game, like,
yeah,
that's just kind of malpractice. And that might have been a Malone thing too. I don't know. Or just like a combination of the feud between the two of them. But I mean, it's pretty incredible what, two new GMs have done in 10 days. But no, I think this has definitely been the most exciting Nuggets offseason that I can remember. Mm-hmm. And we weren't even, again, like that far away. Like Brandon had said, like we took OKC to Game 7. And yeah, if Michael Porter Jr. was remotely healthy, or we had pretty much anyone on the bench at all that could score at all, we probably would have won, but clearly we didn't. And these moves show that the organization noticed that, which to me is like the biggest positive. Is like they realized, like, okay, we need some more depth here. I mean, not that they didn't have depth. They had depth. They just didn't have good depth. Like, how many games and how much has the Dario Saric ever even play for us? Like, he was kind of a waste of a fairly decent sized contract. And then the fact that we were able to trade him straight up for Valanciunas, kind of crazy. I mean, I know it was actually because there was something with like the Kings being at the second apron or something, but because they signed someone I can't remember.
Sign Dennis Schroeder, and they were $5 million away from doing it. So
yeah,
offloading Valanciunas, who was making $10 million, taking in Sarge, who's making $5 million.
That was it.
That's the reason why Sacramento did it. But the only reason why Denver's able to, because they traded MPJ.
Is because they traded
MPJ for Cam Johnson, who makes almost half of what MPJ is making, which is absurd. So yeah, I mean, that MPJ had, like, if they wanted to improve the team at all, MPJ had to go.
Yeah.
And I'm one of the biggest MPJ fans. I remember I was at my parents' house during the draft, and I was freaking out that they got MPJ, that MPJ kept dropping.
Yeah. And
I was screaming at the TV, trying to just hoping that the Nuggets would trade up, because at that point I didn't think that he would drop to them. And somehow he drops because of the injuries, for whatever reason. The Clippers pass on him twice, which is hilarious. And you get a guy who had a lot of potential, and then he got hurt again, and he needed that third back surgery, I believe right after Jamal got hurt. And that really changed everything, because they extended him to this contract that he has now right before he injured his back for a third time. And when he came back, and just watching him the last 2 years, if you go watch highlights from him in the bubble specifically, he was moving so much better. He could redirect, he was cutting more, he was just able to move more. He was more athletic, and because of the third injury, he can't dribble. And
it kind of became
we lost him again. The bubble was a magical place, man. The bubble was the Jamal Murray and MPJ hype in the bubble was absolutely ridiculous. See if we can get him back. There we go.
But no, he kind of became almost like a spot-up shooter at that point.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Michael Porter Jr., I couldn't agree more with Brandon. Definitely, we don't win that title without him. Like, he was instrumental to that run. So all the props to MPJ. Wish him all the best. But yeah, I mean, he had to go. Just that contract was like absolutely bone crushing for this team, not being able to really do anything. And just for what we paid him to, like, again, I don't think he's a bad player, and especially not, he used to be really good, but then again, he had that injury like Brandon was talking about, and who knows if he can kind of get back to what he was. But I think getting Cam Johnson, who is almost a carbon copy of Michael Porter Jr. in some respects, but makes half as much money, was an incredibly good shrewd move by the new duo general managers. The biggest thing is just like, the 2032 unprotected pick. Yeah, I mean, it's 7 years in the future. I get that. It's probably going to be a really valuable pick, though, because is Jokic still going to be playing at 37? I don't know.
With the Nuggets luck, that's going to be the first overall pick, and it's going to be the next LeBron James.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how it works, right?
That's how it works. As long as they win one title, at least.
But yeah, I mean, you're the best player in the world in this prime. You do that 10 times out of 10. You gotta build around the guy while you have him, right? So
I don't care about the greatest of all time 12-year-old right now.
Yeah.
I just don't. So win the title and it's worth it.
Yeah.
But
no, it's totally worth it.
The Cam Johnson deal, I do a lot. I've seen a lot of national media talk about how Cam Johnson and MPJ are the same exact player. I think Bontemps has been on this. And they're not. So I do want to kind of talk about with Cam. The issues with MPJ is he couldn't create anything. He couldn't create shots for himself, and he couldn't create shots for anybody else. He was a play finisher. When he got the ball, he was shooting it, and that's pretty much all he was doing. There were a lot of times where they'd kick out to him. The defense recovers. He pump fakes. He gets around, and then he kind of stops at the like I'm. I mean, and
the lovely internet of Comcast. Yeah.
And when I say that they play similar, like there's definitely differences in their game, but when you're talking about like I hate to go back once again to the Moneyball quotes, but you're talking about replacing, like when you replace someone in the aggregate, you're looking at, MPJ as a shooter, specifically a 3-point shooter. Like that's where they're the most similar, is just like their ability to do that. They do it in very different ways. And I think Cam Johnson is going to thrive with Jokic much more than even Michael Porter Jr. did. And everyone thrives with Jokic, but, and I'll let Brandon finish because he's back. But yeah, there's definitely I think there's an upgrade to Cam Johnson in the way that he plays, but you're not losing anything in terms of the volume 3-point shots that you're able to get from either MPJ or Cam Johnson, but Cam Johnson just does it in a different way, and I think in a more consistent way. But I'll let Brandon finish.
Well, yeah, I mean, for him, he's just able to create off the dribble a lot more, right? MPJ couldn't do that. And one thing too, I noticed just watching. I was watching a bunch of Cam Johnson highlights. A lot of the threes that he takes is actually 2-3 feet behind the 3-point line. Yeah. So you don't necessarily love that shot just on the surface, right? But it is creating more space for everyone else. Yeah. So now the defense has to guard him that far out. So MPJ really never took deep threes. I don't know why, but he just never did. It was just at the 3-point line, probably more than likely just on the wings, and it was just opens up game for specifically. I think it's big for Jamal Murray, because what teams were doing were if Yoke gets the ball inside the 3-point line, we're doubling him, right? And we're doubling him off of AG or Christian Brown or a one-armed MPJ, and we're just daring those guys to have to create something. Christian Brown isn't capable of doing that yet. He's gotten better, but he's not there yet. Aaron Gordon, you saw how valuable that was, that he was able to create a little bit, but he's not amazing at it. He's not great at it. And we know that from Orlando, from his Orlando days. So having somebody else that can create, it opens things up for Jokic, one, but it also opens things up for Jamal, because now when Jamal has the ball, you don't have 3 defenders watching him. Because if you're Cam Johnson, he's going to kill you. So I know Jamal has gotten a lot of hate the past 2 years. Injured. He had a calf injury, and luckily that didn't turn into anything worse, as we've seen multiple times in this last playoffs with all the torn Achilles that we've been seeing. Luckily that didn't happen to Jamal, but he did play with an injured calf, and also AG in Game 7. But this year you just kind of saw what OKC did. All you have to do is double Jokic inside the 3-point line, and then when he gives it up, make sure Jamal doesn't get it, force the other 3 guys to do it. And if Jamal has it, you just have everyone, all eyes on Jamal. And you're not doubling him, but you're blitzing him at times. You're a lot of hedging. And Jamal doesn't have any space to work. So it kind of kills the 2-man game, because if Jamal doesn't have space in that 2-man game, there's nothing he can really do offensively. He can't really create because there's so much attention on him. So Cam Johnson being able to create, he could also run that 2-man game with Jokic. I'm really interested in seeing if that works. But having Cam Johnson able to create for himself and for others, it boosts everyone else. So that's kind of the thing I'm looking forward to most, is just seeing Jamal have more space now.
Yeah. So Jordan, to ask the coach of the room, how would you divvy it up? Put your kind of coaching hat on a little bit, and you're looking at, the Nuggets' new moves. You're looking at the possible starting 5. Because I think this has been a really good discussion, because it's just like, at the end of the day, it's like, it's just been really about maximizing the depth, or bringing in a much better depth, and then not maximizing as many minutes as they did with Nikola Jokic or really anybody else. So to put your coach hat on there, Jordan, how would you maximize this new created lineup of the Denver Nuggets?
Well, I think the starting 5 should be relatively easy to sort out. I mean, obviously Jamal Murray is going to be your point. They're probably going to start either Christian Brown or Tim Hardaway Jr. at the 2. You'll have Cam Johnson at the 3, and then Aaron Gordon and Jokic as your front court. And then, obviously, I would love to see what the new head coach is going to do offensively. I know they were pick and roll merchants, if you want to say, the last few years. They need to start getting out of that. I know that's going to be their bread and butter at the end of games, and that could be so, but they need to have more early offense with Jokic. So I would love to see if they can run up and down a little bit more. I know Jokic may not be fit for that, but he can push the ball up himself. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least, with what the new head coach is going to do. I know you asked me a long time ago if they should bring back David Alderman, and I told you no. They did, so now we got to see what he's going to do, because their offensive philosophy and identity, in my opinion, has to change just a little bit. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and obviously one of the other news that we forgot to mention is the 2 staff members have been hired. JJ Barea, the Dallas Maverick, who just would torture the Denver Nuggets in the past, joins Adelman's staff, and not Chauncey Billups, but Rodney Billups joins the staff of the Denver Nuggets. And I think things are trending in the direction where another member of the Dallas Mavericks staff will be joining, and that is Jared Dudley. But I think things are trending in that direction from everything that I've seen and heard. But yeah, those are the staff notes, if you will.
Yeah, a lot of Dallas Mavericks, which is Tim Hardaway, obviously a former Maverick. I'm just saying, the way the roster is built right now, you don't have a lot of long-term contracts other than Jokic. So the rest of them can kind of. I think AG's is extended. I think he might be the next one.
What are you hinting?
I'm just saying there's a free agent in 2026, and generally in free agency, it's a benefit to re-sign with the team who drafted you or the team that you've been with for a while because you can make more money. They can offer you more money. But there was a trade that cost Luka about $80 million. So now money money doesn't matter. At this point, contract doesn't matter because he's going to get the same contract from any team at the same price, right? So, just saying. I mean, the Nuggets don't have a ton of long-term contracts. They can kind of get off of some of these fairly easily at this point or after this next season. I don't know. I mean, if Luka doesn't like LA, he could join his best friend. I'm just saying. No, he's going to resign with the Lakers. There's no way, right?
Yeah.
There's no
way. I mean, who knew?
A man can dream.
Yeah.
I mean, keep your options open. That's all.
Yeah, that's probably it. At the end of the day, just keep your options open. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I just no one really predicted the Luka trade, or I should say that kind of trade. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if something like that happened, something wild like that happened. But it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Realistically, the hardest thing would be trading Jamal because his contract is bigger. But it would be, I don't know how many more years Jamal has, but if you're essentially trading them for nothing because you don't want money back, I feel like you could probably get off of Jamal's contract fairly easily if you're signing someone like Luka. But I don't know. You never know what happens. I mean, the way the Lakers are trying to, I don't know, help Luka or whatever, if you want to call that helping Luka, it's. I mean, I don't know. This season might be a disaster for the Lakers, so it'll be interesting to see how Luka handles that. But
just trade LeBron. LeBron come to Denver.
That's the thing is they should trade LeBron realistically because that opens up $50 million where you could gain 2 or 3 guys that could fit with Luka a little bit better. I really don't know what the Lakers are doing. And even for LeBron, if he does want to win, you should probably find a way to get to Cleveland if you really want to win. So I don't know. It's a weird situation that going on in LA. It doesn't really make sense what they're doing. But one thing I will say real quick, the Cam Johnson piece for Denver is really interesting. Obviously the goal is to get the minutes down for Jokic and Jamal and Gordon. Like that's the biggest thing, right? Get those guys down to 32 minutes a game during the regular season. I think they were all 36 and up.
Yeah.
So get them down to 32. And instead of running, like Jordan was talking about earlier about the offense and changing the offense up, not everything has to go through Jokic. Mm-hmm. Yes, late in games, you want Jokic to have the ball. But let's let Cam Johnson run things. Even when Jamal is out there, even when Jokic is out there, let's let Cam Johnson run the offense. He did it in Brooklyn, and he averaged 19 a game on 47% shooting from the field, 40% from 3, and those were all tough shots. Those are all step backs. Those are all contested shots. So obviously he's not going to be getting as much attention when Jokic and Jamal are on the floor. Let him run things. And if they do that, and obviously Joker's minutes are going to go down a little bit, Jamal's will probably stay the same, but he'll probably be a little bit more efficient. Honestly, I think Jokic might have his first All-Star teammate. And I think it can be Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson, I could see he averaged nearly 19 a game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. I could see that jumping up to 22, 23 points per game. I really do. And if they're on a 60-win pace, he's probably going to be an all-star. So I wouldn't be shocked.
Absolutely blows my mind that Jokic
I wouldn't
is still
be
not
shocked
played
if
with him.
Cam Johnson is an all-star.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy that Jokic has never had an all-star teammate. To be fair, Jamal has been that guy in the playoffs. So but yeah, I mean, it would be nice. It doesn't really matter, but it would be nice to have another Nugget player in the all-star
on the resume. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on from from that kind of firework to some Broncos fireworks as we're kind of gearing up with training camp. I know Jordan is just chomping at the bit to just torture this wide receiver room yet again. Let's talk about this wide receiver room and tight end room. We're continuing our training camp preview as we're gearing up for training camp. It's going to be an exciting time. Obviously, it is very limited in ticket space. There's 800 people that are going to be in attendance for bleacher seating, I believe. So it is going to be interesting to see how all that shakes out as far as training camp. We did linebackers and edge rushers last week, and so we're going to continue the theme and do wide receivers and tight ends. And it seems fitting to kind of lead things off with the biggest Debbie Downer of them all for that wide receiver room. Jordan, how would you describe this Denver Broncos wide receiver room in one word?
Wow, one word? Yeah, you gotta give me some time to think here. You're limiting me to one word. I mean, man.
I got one.
What is it?
Just average. I might actually be. I mean, if Jordan, if you're not very high on this receiving core, I'm not either. I don't really love Sutton. I know Cortland Sutton's a big fan favorite, but I think he's at best a number 2 receiver. That's just a big red zone target. I love Marvin Mims, but I don't think he's a top 2 guy. I think they're missing their number 1 receiver. And if you were to get a number 1 receiver on that for that group, then you kind of move everyone down the list, I think it looks a lot better. But I don't love this group. I'm curious to see what Bryant does. But he's a rookie. I don't know how much you can really expect from a rookie. I just think they're really missing just an elite guy. And I don't know if Bo Nix is the type of quarterback that can really elevate his receivers to the point where you're elevating a number 2 guy to look like a number 1 guy, right? You're elevating a number 3 guy to look more like a number 2 guy. I don't know if Bo Nix is that quarterback, because to me, those quarterbacks are like the tier 1 level quarterbacks. And I don't think he's that type of guy. So I'm really worried about this receiving group.
So would you say average, Jordan?
I would say average. I would say, yeah. I guess I'm trying to find like the perfect word, but again, we don't have a true wide receiver one. I've been on that forever, and I've been getting killed for it. And we have young guys right now that need to hit their ceiling as soon as possible in order for this wide receiver room to look a lot better. Because if they don't, then we're going to be in a real conundrum here with this wide receiver room. I mean, everybody knows my thoughts on Courtland Sutton.
And
I did a whole thing about it last year. I think I even ranked them among all the wide receiver ones of last year, and I had them, I think, literally at 30 out of the 32 wide receiver ones.
Yeah.
And that was, like, statistically speaking as well. So, I mean, I guess average. I'll put it nicely for tonight. Because I'm not in my house in Miami and I'm in Orlando. I'll just say average and agree with that. But if I was in a better state of mind, I'll probably think of another word. But maybe I'll think of that when Brandon talks.
They just don't have any. They just don't have anyone that I think other teams would be scared of. Like, if they had to go up against the Broncos defense, are you really concerned about who Surtain is covering? No. You don't really care, right? Unless if you're playing the Bengals, you care. You're like, yeah, you need to be on Jamar Chase. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. You need to be on one of the two, Higgins or Jamar Chase, right?
Yeah.
So like that's the thing is no one in that group scares you. At least they didn't scare anyone last year, and I don't think they're going to scare anyone this year.
Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess I'm slightly nicer. My word was gonna be decent. I think they're decent. I don't think they're elite. I don't think they're great. I think they're good, depending on if some guys take a step and Sutton continues to stay healthy and Marvin Mims is utilized maybe a little bit more. And I don't know, decent is what I'm sticking with, but I definitely think there's some work that needs to happen here. And Pat Bryant is not cutting it for me. Like, obviously I don't know what he's going to do. No one knows what he's going to do, but just from what I know about him, he just seems more to me like the replacement for Sutton. And I already don't think Sutton is a wide receiver one. So if you want to replace Sutton with a cheaper guy, fine. And maybe it's not that. Maybe it's a Tim Patrick replacement. But then I'm like, Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton were the same thing. So are you just really wanting to have two of the same archetype wide receivers? I mean, trustworthy, great hands for a young quarterback, I guess. That was more Tim Patrick than, not that Courtland Sutton has a big drops problem, but Tim was the reliable one, like super reliable one. But yeah, I think he's more of the Sutton replacement. So it's like you have Robin, where's Batman? Right? Like we use this analogy with the edge defenders, but I think it fits with the wide receivers too. Like you have a bunch of different variations of Robin. You have like the Tim Drake Robin, like whoever your favorite Robin is Sutton, and everyone else is just like whatever the downgrades are from there. But you don't have Batman. Yeah. And you're I don't know where you're going to get him, but it's probably going to be in the draft. And we'll see there. I mean, the fact that I wanted us to take someone higher this year. I mean, obviously we took Pat Bryant third round, but like this was such a good wide receiver class. It was crazy. There were so many good available options that I think would have given you just a different and a skill set and a higher ceiling maybe than Pat Bryant. And again, I'm not even hating on the guy based on what I've seen of him, which is not much.
Available?
No, he went right before us. He went 19 to the Bucks. That pissed me off.
That's probably the guy that, if he was there, they probably take him, I'm assuming. Yeah. But that's the guy that really could have helped because I really like Bo Nix, and I think you guys know this, and I've talked about this. I view quarterbacks in tiers. So like to me, tier 1, it doesn't really matter who's around him. They're going to be great no matter what, right? That's the Mahomes, the Josh Allen type of group. But in that tier 2, to me, it's like guys like, or maybe even tier 3, guys like Tua, guys like Dak, right? Where it's like you need special.
Yeah, like people around him.
In order for them to be a Pro Bowl level quarterback or a deep playoff run type of quarterback, you need special weapons around him. And right now with Bo on his rookie deal, this is the time to be aggressive and go get those guys. There wasn't really a ton of guys available outside of the draft, I don't think. I can't remember, but I don't think there was really anyone. So maybe that's something that they just do next offseason. But man, if you could have moved up and gotten Egbuka, that fixes your problem completely. And then you can go keep chasing guys next offseason. But it's just disappointing that, I mean, you could have traded up. Maybe they were just hoping that he would drop to him. But
Yeah.
I just, in that situation, you need to help your quarterback out.
Yeah. As much as I still love the Baron pick, I would have absolutely loved that Egbuka. And maybe he was the plan. And I guess I understand that they could have assumed that the Bucs probably weren't going to take a wide receiver after the moves they made there and spending the money that they did. But I agree. I would have loved Egbuka. But even past that, taking Pat Bryant over Jalen Noel. Okay. I guess that's a decision. And then also taking Kyle Williams and Jalen Noel both went after RJ Harvey. And I like RJ Harvey. He's going to be a great running back, but just based on everything I've seen from how that draft panned out, he probably would have been there in the third round. So if you want to trade up to round 2 and take a weapon, and there's still so many, there's so many running backs. There was insanely amount of good running backs. You could have taken any of those. Take your pick. You like Kyle Williams? Great. You like Noel? Fantastic. You like Savion Williams, who went a little bit later in the same third round? Great. Any of those guys in round 2, and then you could probably still get a running back, but probably still RJ Harvey in round 3. Obviously it's revisionist history, but I'm just I think there was a little bit of wiggle room there that could have maybe played out a little bit better. And I think they're decent. I don't think we're going to have a massive issue there, but could it be upgraded? Absolutely. I think wide receiver is going to be and need to be a focus for this team going into next offseason, which obviously way too far away to even begin to think about that, because so many things can happen over the course of the next 9 months. But
if there is anyone that is on the trade block by the deadline, you need to make a move, especially if you're struggling on third downs, or you're struggling in the red zone, or you're not getting any big plays other than Marvin Mims. You're gonna have to do something, especially if the defense is as good as we think they're gonna be. You're gonna have to do something. If you're, what week is the deadline? Week 8?
It's somewhere right in there. It's kind of smack dab
right around there. So if you're right around 5-3, or even 4-4, and it's the offense that's man, if we just had one guy on this offense that could help, and there's someone available, you probably have to at that point go for it. And
maybe their plan is to wait till 2027, get Jeremiah Smith. Just not a good plan.
Wow. That's a top 3 pick, so I don't know.
Not a good plan to think about in 2025. I'm totally kidding, but not that I wouldn't love Jeremiah Smith, but maybe that's what they were thinking about. They're well, we're going to kick the can down the road 2 years because we're going to get an elite dude.
The trader for Ryan Williams.
Absolutely. But fireable offense, but.
I think for me, if I was to come up with one where to a certain degree, it's the same conversation of average or decent or okay, but it's just for me, it's growth. I think that we saw some steps from some guys at the end of the year, right? So let's just move forward. But I think on the surface, it's still that decent average or whatever, but there's arguments to be made in the sense of we did see some signs of improvement. And I do think that, there's a reason why a lot of people feel like Bo Nix was the team MVP, this last year, because, it did seem like he lifted. It seemed like he really did lift this boat of a team, right, on the offensive side of the ball. So I think that at least on the rookie year, it certainly seemed like, to your point, so it's I think it seemed like, at least on the surface, he lifted the boats of guys like Cortland specifically, because like we hadn't seen that version of Cortland since 2019. So if we
I
can,
just think Bo is that much better than Russ or any of the other quarterbacks that they've had. Like, I don't think it was a very high bar.
well, I mean, that's, to be fair, I think you're right there, but I think
naturally that helped Cortland.
But I just think that if we can continually see just the growth of the wide receiver room, and specifically the consistent growth of the room, that's really all you could ask for. And I do think at the end of the day, like, it is, to Paul's point, it is a bit of a diverse group of wide receivers. So if there is a positive to be said, it is a diverse room. And frankly, in this talk of growth, I mean, you look at what the room has. It needs that extra step. It needs that player to kind of seize the opportunity for what it, and maybe it's not just one, but multiple. Like they need a wide receiver or two to really just kind of take that extra step forward into 2025. And frankly, I think there's two people there, and that would be Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. If you see the massive improvement from Troy Franklin, which is better than his rookie year, and then you see Marvin Mims, in essence, become, because my comparison for him right now is Percy Harvin. I think everybody's kind of like made the comparison a little bit of Debo and everything. Look, he's not bigger like Debo and everything. You actually look at Percy Harvin's height and weight, it's very similar. It is very similar to Marvin Mims. And so I think that if you still see some of that same usage, which I thought was brilliant by the coaching staff for how they used him, if you incorporate that and then you factor in the depth of Troy Franklin, his ball tracking is better, his hands are better. In 2025, you're talking about a much better unit, and the trajectory for a guy like Troy Franklin is, okay, maybe there's actually something here where we can talk about a player that can be on the outside and be a little bit of a boundary wide receiver because he's got the speed. The route running is a bit underrated. It can be better, but I mean, the route running is certainly better. But there's also a player in this room that, or I should say, there's a player in this room who's not in this room, but you might as well put him in that room, and that's Evan Ingram. So I technically, if you're saying like there's a wide receiver two or a like to what Brandon mentioned, you got a Tim Drake in the room, you got a Jason Todd in the room, and you got a Dick Grayson in the room. Like they got multiple different Robins in the room, but you have probably your Jason Todd or your Dick Grayson type of other Robin in Evan Ingram, who's still a pretty solid weapon. And I think that at the end of the day, like it's a rather diverse group, which is, I think, something you can say. It's just still, you got to see the growth from that room. And if they do that in 2025, it's a vast improved unit.
If I came from the future and told you guys, hey, there's one of either Franklin, Mims, Bryant, I guess you can throw Vele in there. He's not as young though. One of those guys in 3 years is a true number one receiver, and he's been 90 catch guy, 1,400 yards, double digit touchdowns for 2 straight years. And I'm coming from the 4 years from the future. Like, who is that guy that you guys would guess?
None of them. I'm dead serious. I don't think any of those guys get to that point. Like IQ can't.
Well, you know what? I'm coming from the future. I'm from the future. One of them has.
Fine. I guess I'd say Marvin Mims. I just think he might have the highest ceiling, but I don't think he's gonna get that high.
Jordan?
For me, it'd be Troy Franklin to reach that.
I'm torn because like there are 3 really good choices. I think based on what we're currently seeing, I'm just going to kind of keep on the trend, and I'm going to say Devon Bailey. I know age
then
and everything.
he's going to be like 30 years old using a cane going down the field. So I don't know. But I'm kind of short on this one. I think it'd be Franklin. But I didn't really like what I saw last year. So I mean, more than likely it's none. But if it has to be one of them, I think I would have to say Franklin.
Well, then here's the argument, because we did talk about ceiling, but like, who has the highest ceiling in this room? Is it Marvin Mims or is it Troy Franklin?
It's Franklin, just because of his prototypical size. You're a 6'1" wide receiver at that size, that fast. I mean, he has to have the highest ceiling. I know Marvin Mims is a fan favorite, but he's going to be used more as a gadget guy. Troy Franklin's going to be more out wide. He'll be moved into the slot. Like, it has to be Franklin. And if it's not, and if it's Mims, which I don't mind if it's Mims, but at least in my opinion, the way I view wide receiver, it should be Troy Franklin.
So Bryant's not even close
I just think
everyone's list, right? Like, he's just. I'm kind of surprised that none of you guys have any ounce of hope for Bryant.
Oh, I love Bryant.
I need to see something.
No.
I've seen nothing, so I can't say anything. Honestly, that's the same reason I can't pick Troy Franklin right now. Is I just feel like, I mean, yeah, I guess I can just go off his measurables, but I feel like I've not seen him contribute at all on an actual NFL field, whereas I have seen Mims do that, and I can build a case around like, okay, I've seen this guy do this. Like, I think he has the skill set. He's a sub 4.4 guy, runs a 4.3. Like, yeah, he's a bit smaller, but I think I can get there more. I'm not saying Troy Franklin can't. I just think I need to see more from him before I put him on that, like, raise his ceiling to that level. But like, physically, absolutely. But I mean, physically, Paxton Lynch would have been John Elway 2.0. So
yeah. So much so it gave him PTSD and he didn't want to draft Josh Allen. I think for me, it was just like, I was just more answering off of your question, which was the trio. I think if you look at someone, the fact they traded up for him, and you do look at the measure and the body of work of the player, it's really hard to ignore Pat Bryant. But it's also one of the reasons, because of me, trying not to ignore Pat Bryant, it's also one that's like, I'm trying really hard to not ignore Devon Bailey, because there was the point even in the season, at that beginning part of the season, where he was gobbling up everything in the middle. Like, he was getting targets. He was a really good middle of the field threat. And I know that, the age is, definitely somewhat of a concern, but it's just like, if we get that kind of Vele compared with, and then partnered with possibly what this Bryant guy can factor in, with his skill set and everything, it's a really interesting room, because you are talking about, because I think that Vele is another one of those options where post Cortland Sutton, he's another one. Like, he's another one that you could go to and possibly be a replacement for him. But I think the other part I think we have to factor in here is who the head coach is too. When we talk about the wide receiver room, and technically not necessarily having a true wide receiver one. I mean, for the most part, Sean's the most wide receiver one that he's ever had before, injuries, if we're being completely honest, is Marcus Colston. Like, there was this certain stretch of years, and then he just nosedived, and that was Michael Thomas. But I think that when you look at it from like just the overall body work, Colston was really his true number one. But over the course of his entire career, he really hasn't had like a dominant, true number one. And he's had just, not to piss off Jordan, due to the whole Jerry Jeudy thing, but it is kind of like a room of just Jags, right? Like, it is like, they are kind of like just guys, right? But if they can be able to develop a little bit more of that room, like, maybe they can get to something. But Sean never really is kind of like the type of guy where we'll have a pure dominant Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson, person of that room.
I just feel like Calvin Booth is the one running the wide receiver group, where it's like one of these young guys will hit, They will. At some point, one of these lower round pick guys will hit. Like that's what it feels like. And at some point you're gonna have to go get a guy and just make a hard decision and just say screw it. We're giving up future picks, or we're doing something that will give us a guarantee, because you gotta help Bo Nix at some point. Like, you can't wait until you're paying Bo Nix $50 million a year, and now it's like, well, now we really need one of these young guys to hit in the draft. Like, this is your time to go get someone special. So go get someone special.
This is also the best possible timing to do something like that, because you have very little holes on this roster. Yeah. I mean, at some point, do you have to replace Garrett Bowles? Sure. Who knows when that's going to be? Could have a couple more seasons left in him if he, decides to continue playing. And then also, like, there's some expiring contracts on the defensive line. They're going to be, you gotta like do something with those at some point here. But I mean, you can find a way to pay those guys. So at this point, if you're like, well, I got to give up a future like first or future second, like high pick, like this is the probably best possible time to do something like that, to give Bo and your offense the best possible chance. So I'm in full agreement. Like, I don't know who's going to be available. I don't even know if I can randomly like name a pipe dream guy, but
how about I'll throw out one. I doubt it'll get a lot of excitement here, but Tyreek Hill.
Well, you're a Chiefs fan, to be fair. So
no. I'm just saying, because it was, I think he said he put something on Twitter either yesterday or whatever. Basically, he's not happy with what's going on in Miami. But if that's the best available wide receiver at the deadline, and we all feel like, okay, they're one guy away. Like this team can go on a deep playoff run with one more elite weapon, and the only guy available is Tyreek Hill. Would you give up it's not going to be a first round pick, obviously, but would you give up a second round pick or a third? I don't know if he'd even be a second round.
Well, the other idea is, like, for me, he's a bit of a head case, and I don't know if he's actually like going to be retiring or not retiring, but he has said he's going to be retiring like in the next 2 years. That said, there's another wide receiver with Miami that I would absolutely trade for. And his name is Jalen Waddle. I absolutely would trade.
They're not going to trade Jalen Waddle. Like, that's the thing. It's got to be some receiver who
someone
wants to
that
leave.
Would be potentially tradable. I mean, it's definitely Tyreek Hill, but I do not want Tyreek Hill.
You'd be surprised with the Dolphins.
Well, I mean, maybe if Mike McDaniel truly is on the absolute hot seat and things do not go well.
It is, but it is true. Like, there was like a fantasy football trade that did happen like a couple of days ago where, there was Jalen Ramsey for Minka Fitzpatrick. Oh, no, by the way, we're going to throw Jonnu Smith, in there because Arthur Smith has, a hard on for him. So I don't know. Anything is certainly possible. I do think that there is a possibility, though, that they get 1,000-yard receiver, though. I think the as far as this year for the Broncos, the question is just, will it end up being Courtland Sutton again? I think that's kind of like the question. It's like, is there going to be, is there a scenario, right? Is there a scenario where Courtland Sutton is actually not the 1,000-yard receiver on this team? Or is there actually even an obscure and obnoxious scenario where they actually have two? But it is like, just kind of like, because like it's almost one where, like, do you remember back when, granted, they didn't make the playoffs this year? They should have. But it was the year, it was Simeon's first year, and the Broncos went 9-7, and they had Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, and they just kind of broke that threshold of 1,000 yards, both of them. But they didn't make the playoffs. I think there's a scenario there where even if the Broncos are 10-7 again, they're still probably end up being in the playoffs at that point because you at least have to hit 10 wins to get to the playoffs. But I think there's at least a chance you have 2 wide receivers that are hitting 1,000 yards.
I mean, again, I think we go back to that one word to describe this room. For me, I guess I'll just chalk it up to bad. I mean, I just need something I need a major shakeup in this room.
So
would you have traded for George Pickens if you were the GM? If you were George Payton, would you have made the move to go get George Pickens?
I'm not a Pickens guy.
Okay,
I'm not.
So I know I asked you this question, and I know that we all grow as human beings, Jordan. And I know it's still fresh on the mind, but I'm going to ask you the same question because of the fact that it's a training camp preview, and we're talking about the wide receiver room. But what does Pat Bryant have to do to make you smile at the end of the year?
He needs to show me that he can be a productive wide receiver at the next level and not have these yards after the catch that I saw on clips against a Rutgers team that was god-awful, and then everybody celebrated. He needs to beat man-to-man coverage consistently and not every once in a while. What other wide receiver issues did we have over the past years? He needs to be reliable. And, yeah, just be a difference maker because we haven't had that in
So then let's just ask the same conversation then to some of these other guys as we're kind of like breaking it down the room. You know, Brandon, what does Troy Franklin have to do to make you smile at the end of the year?
Me or him?
I use Brandon Stoll's last name to make it easier. What does Franklin have to do to make you smile at the end of the year? Brandon?
Oh, I thought you were saying Stoll. Okay. No, I got it now. Dang. Okay. Show demonstrable improvement. Like, if he just improves and does not seem to kind of make those concentration drops, rookie mistakes that you make, I mean, obviously as a rookie, and he can be somewhat dependable, like, okay, I'll be happy. I don't know. I'm not expecting him to have a double-digit touchdown season. Like, absolutely not.
Wow.
I mean, that would be absolutely crazy. I'd be sick. I mean, but I would absolutely, I'd buy a Troy Franklin jersey if that happened. I'd literally record me. I don't even care. Record me right now. But yeah, I think if he just like shows a demonstrable improvement, that's going to be enough for me. And he could double his touchdowns from last year, get 4 of them, hit maybe 500 yards. Like, I'll take that. Just look like you belong on that field at the next level. And like, not to say that he played absolutely terribly. Like he had some moments, but there were just also some moments that it's like, what are you doing, man? Clearly looked like a rookie, but I mean, you know, he was a rookie, and I can't expect everyone to come into the league and be Justin Jefferson. So I would be happy with just solid improvement.
Okay. Stoll, what does Devon Vele have to do to make you smile at the end of the year?
Go back in time and get younger.
8 miles an hour in a DeLorean.
Go back to the Fountain of Youth.
I really do like Vele. He's so old. He's not old, but like,
no, relative.
It's just, at this point, honestly, I don't think there really is anything he could do. Because
he turns into Michael Thomas, just blossoms into Michael Thomas mid-year.
I mean,
you wouldn't smile.
I'd be very surprised.
I guess that'd be.
I'm not
That'd be
saying
nice.
it's realistic. I'm not saying it's realistic, but you said nothing, and I'm just trying to play
I just
play a
don't
little bit of
have-
devil's advocate.
I just don't have any hope with Vele, just because. Look, he could come out and have a good year. I mean, he could come out and have 100 catches, 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns. Honestly, I don't think I'd be super excited for the future with him. Like, I would just say it was a really great. It was an awesome year.
Is it just because of like an age thing?
It has to be.
Would I want him to? Would I want the Broncos to sign him to a 3-year extension for $20 million a year? No. Like, so like I don't know. Like with him, the age thing with Vele, it just puts me off completely. Just because as a long-term guy, like I don't. Obviously, I hope he comes out and he has an amazing year. I just don't. Obviously, I don't think that will happen. But even if he does, he's going to be what, 28 after the season or going into next season? Is that right?
So,
or
to kind of put qualifiers on this, though,
don't
like
know.
you're saying that like the reason why you wouldn't be excited is just due to the fact of his age.
Yeah, well, look, to me, so wide receivers have, once they hit 30, generally that's when they kind of start to tail off. So yes, he's right in the middle of his prime right now.
Yeah.
So like if he has a great year this year, that should be expected because he's right in his prime. But after this year, and even let's say he has a good year next year, and he has, but at that point, you got to re-sign him. I just wouldn't re-sign him. Like I just wouldn't. I wouldn't give him a ton of money.
Well, let's. I mean, he has 2 more years left on his deal. So like,
right. So that's what I'm saying is if
we're
he comes out
far
over the
away
next
from
2
extension
years,
talk, but
right. But like, let's say he over the next 2 years he has great years, right?
Mhm.
Like he could possibly be the number 1 receiver, or he's been the number 1. Just hypothetically say he's been the number 1 wide receiver on this team, and he's looked like it. I still wouldn't re-sign him to a big deal. I would just go and draft someone.
So I think to me, it's like kind of what frame of reference are you using when you look at him? Because to me, and I think your analogy earlier is perfect. Put a wide receiver 1 in this team, everyone else moves down. I'm fine with Devon Bailey as a wide receiver 4. Like, sign me up for that all day long. Is it going to be a long-term option? No, probably not. I mean, yeah, he's almost 30, but not even almost 30. He's close to 30. But to me, it's like, again, what lens am I looking through this as? Like, if I'm trying to expect him to be my wide receiver 2, yeah, I'm going to have a problem. But I already want another wide receiver. I want a wide receiver 1 on this team. That puts Bailey as wide receiver 4, maybe wide receiver 5. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah. I just think that if there is one player like specifically who I do trust about it would be Mims, just because of the fact that it's hard to preface this because I don't obviously view it necessarily as a pure wide receiver in a sense, because he's that gadget player, right? Like that Percy Harvin. But if there is a player that just truly like you have so much trust for, maybe at this point it is maybe Mims or maybe Bailey at that point. And this is maybe like after Sutton, because I think that Sutton's like that good vet in the room. Because I think that Knicks really trusts him, in that room. So this is sort of like after, Sutton at this point. But there's probably one player, and it's Mims for me, because it's like if he shows everything that he did at the middle point of that year to the end of the year for a full season, you got everything that you could have probably asked for, because you're talking about a player that can be able to run the ball, a player that can also go up and get it and at its highest point, and obviously a clutch situation, right? Like in a clutch situation, in that Bengals game, like he was making tough catches after tough catches, and then it's also a player that Sean and Lombardi and the staff can be able to scheme and show the ability where they can be able to scheme him open, much to like what they were able to do with a guy like Alvin Kamara and everything. So if there is a player that I think can really take a meteoric rise, maybe to use a drastic phrase there, but like it would be Mims in that, because we already saw how much production he packed in from that midway point in the year. Like if you combine that for a full season, they would have 2 1,000-yard, players in that room, and it would be, Sutton, and it would be Mims. So I think if there's one player probably based on how that ended, it would be Mims.
Yeah, I mean, for sure an interesting conversation whenever it comes to the wide receivers, whether it's all negative or just all positive. I think something we can all agree upon is that there are just a wide
there's a wide variety.
The opinions are either up here or down here. Like there's no middle. Like,
right.
At least with other wide receiver rooms, you can kind of gauge like what the opinion on the room. With the Broncos wide receiver room, you have no idea. You have none.
Well, and I think that if there is and we said it, like if there is a positive that's in this room, it's diverse. Like, so if they have a chance to grow and they have a chance to do things, it's because they're a pretty diverse room and they can work through a lot of different things schematically for how they want that room to go. So like if there is a positive of the room, it's a diverse room. So obviously I don't want to talk about too much of the tight end room because there's really not much to say kind of after Evan Ingram. And so much so that like he is kind of a wide receiver. But he's and I think that the reason why, Brandon, like when we were talking about like how we want to kind of work the room, it's, when we did the preview, it's like one of the reasons why I wanted to do the tight ends is like when you factor in the weapon aspect of this team, there's really only like 2 weapons for this team. When I keyword weapons, it would be Evan Ingram and Marvin Mims. So like Evan Ingram's like your number 1 weapon. So that's probably one of the reasons why maybe you don't want to qualify maybe Mims and or Ingram as wide receiver tight end, right? But like you look at Ingram, he's listed as a tight end, but we kind of have a feeling of where he is. He may, in air quotes, be that tight end 1, but you look strictly at the room of the tight ends. Troutman probably is your tight end 1 based solely on that positional type, but it's a bare room. Like it is kind of a bare room when you look a little bit after Evan Ingram. But to be fair, the Broncos did need to make a move there at that tight end position.
I mean, Brent, you can take this first, but I mean,
yeah,
there's nothing really besides the Ingram addition. I mean, it's still kind of vague there in that room.
The bar is real low. The bar doesn't even exist. The bar is in Antarctica or something. Like whatever you do to this tight end room, it's going to get better. So Evan Ingram, I think at this stage of his career, even at his age, and even with some of the injury issues that he's had recently, like. I think that's a great addition. I think he's going to be able to actually do something at tight end for us. I'm just not even going to read that comment. But like, again, like right now, there's nothing. There's literally nothing. So anything that he can do is going to be a pretty massive improvement. And I think there's a good chance he could be a solid, like, move tight end weapon for us. Like I think he's going to be able to be a 6 touchdown guy, which is a lot more than we've really ever had at tight end in recent memory. Maybe it's like 7 touchdown guy. Like even that to me is fine. And then I mean you also have just like the nice project in Caleb Lohner at the very end of the draft. So not mad at that. I like that as a developmental piece, but you had to do something there because again, there was literally nothing. So there's the only way to possibly go is up. And I think we went up at least a bit. Like, do we have, the tight ends of 2 of our rivals that happen to be just like basically the best in the NFL? depending on how you view George Kittle, no. But, I mean, we got something, and that's better than we've had for years.
Yeah. Jordan?
I mean, again, it's very, very low. I mean, I'm glad that we fixed it with Evan Ingram, but again, he is more of a wide receiver than a tight end. And I think everybody can kind of agree with that. The only one, or the only player I would say in that room that intrigues me is the one that we actually drafted, Caleb Owner, just because he has some physical traits and some things that, can interest me, but he has a lot of developing to do. So we won't really see his progression in like 2 years, I think. So I do think next year that they'll continue to add to that room. And I mean, if I'm being quite honest, I hope they add to the room by the end of training camp or maybe at the trade deadline. But I think if we were to rank all the rooms, like positional rooms for the Broncos, I think the tight end room would be the worst, right?
Of all the rooms that's on the team, I would just say tight end is worth, like even linebacker, right? Like we talked about linebacker and stuff last week being, despite all of that, like with the injuries and everything, like, yeah, tight end room is probably the worst room. But I think that if there's something to be said about how it could be operated, is that due to the fact that Ingram is in here, you at least have flexibility knowing because there's, I hate to give too many Bronco fans PTSD, but like when Greg Dulcich was in, like we all knew what was going to be happening, right? Like we knew they're going to be throwing the ball, right? But now you actually can be able to run an offense of Evan Ingram on the field and Adam Troutman on the field. So you don't necessarily have to have a little bit of like some predictability, if you will. Like you have some schematic diversity, if you will. And so like, I just think that, it's one where the room itself may be pretty bare, if you will, like after Troutman, which isn't necessarily saying a lot, but he's at least a solid enough tight end too. So like you at least have that schematic versatility where you can be like, okay, we at least have something to where you're not talking about, we know immediately if Evan Ingram is on the field without Troutman, we know exactly what's going to be happening, right? Like, or we know exactly what is going to be happening once maybe Troutman is on the field or whatever. But like, so they have at least something in that tight room with that.
I mean, we can always like bring somebody out of retirement, right? I guess that's like the popular thing to do now. Just bring tight ends out of retirement.
Nah, man, he just wanted to live in Miami.
I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy.
But I mean, I guess even talking about the room, there really is a player that like probably would surprise, and that would be Caleb Lawner. Just because of the traits, and Jordan, you talked about it on draft night, but feel free to give the audience a bit of a reason why you're so high on him, and part of it might actually end up being why you being a basketball coach and you see some of those traits, and then as far as what it could translate to the NFL level.
Yeah, I mean just basketball guys move different when they play football. Like with that transition from basketball to football, you can clearly see that, or you can kind of tell like if a guy is a multi-sport athlete, especially when he plays basketball and football, just because the size of which basketball players are, they move a bit differently than, like for example, a 6'5" basketball player moves a lot differently than a 6'5" football player, and that's why it intrigues me with Caleb Lawner, because he has the physical traits. He's more fluid and smooth whenever he does run. So now him learning how to run routes properly and like how to use his leverage and routes and stuff like that, like that's going to be the interesting part. because now you have to marry that with his, I don't want to say smoothness, but the way he moves as a big guy. Now you got to just put all that together, which is going to take time. So that's why I'm not going to judge him right now, and I might not even judge him by next year. This might be like a 2-year process. So, like, he's one that like really, really intrigues me, because that transition from basketball to football, I mean, I've been around it all of my life, especially in Miami. It is one that's fun because, again, of just the way those guys move from basketball, then moving to the football field. It's fun. It's fun to see.
Yeah. And I think that when you kind of look at it, I think that given the news, right? Given the news of Arthur Smith and his hard on, if you will, for Jonnu Smith, it begs the question, what to make of the room. And I know a lot of Bronco fans or just fans in terms of speculating for what the Broncos should do in trading for a tight end for the Steelers. A few of them do kind of go out there and say, go out and get a Pat Freiermuth, right? But I think that, there's really only 2 tight ends that are kind of on my radar. One being Darnell Washington. Like, you give me almost an extra tackle, so to speak, right? A pure blocking tight end that could just block his butt off on every single play. Absolutely, I'm taking him. And that would be a player that not just only Sean Payton would love, but Zach Strief would love, and everybody on that staff would love Darnell Washington in the room. And then the second one is, frankly, one that I've been like pounding the table for, frankly, since maybe right at the end of the season, and that is Luke Musgrave. Like, if Denver's been kind of like in this, low risk, high reward type of situation, and with looking at some of these players, Musgrave fits that because like he's a player that you can be able to bring in here. He's a very talented tight end. He's in a crowded room a little bit in Green Bay. You gives him a new opportunity. Like, it's one that I think you can bring him in the room. And frankly, I wouldn't even be upset if they made both of those moves, just because like that's kind of like how bare that room is. But I would love to see maybe them add another physical body, to that room.
Yeah, I mean, I did see it was mentioned in the chat that Lucas Crow is going to graduate tight end university, so maybe our tight end room does improve a little bit, Yeah. I think Andy was the one that said it, yeah.
But did you see how many people went to obviously Evan Ingram went to that, but did you see how many people went to that tight end university?
Yep.
Nearly every single tight. Okay, look, I liked Thomas Fidone, but it's bad when Thomas Fidone is actually attending the tight end, the tight end U. But like, no, yeah.
I mean, the Lucas Crow hate in the chat today.
If you're watching Cecil Lammy, look away. That's all I'll say. If you're, but yeah, it's interesting. Like the 0.0 GPA where makes it seem like he's some like character from the movie Accepted, or like Animal House, like fabricating GPA numbers to succeed. But I mean, all in all, there's really not much to say about the tight end room. I mean, I think truly, if there is a player that you're kind of betting on to be that 1,000-yard player that's between the wide receiver room and the tight end room, if you will, that could be that, it is Evan Ingram. But it's just, one of those things, like, it is a bit of a bare room. It's an exciting room in the sense, like, because they did add a very valuable piece with Ingram. And I will admittedly say I'm curious because Ingram, this will be the first time in his career where he will be going into a situation that's probably the best of his career. And if he flourishes, like if he flourishes, he only signed a 2-year deal. If he flourishes after year 1, there's a valued like conversation to be had about like, okay, here's another guy we need to add to the extension talks.
Hypothetical: if Cortland Sutton and Evan Ingram both play 17 games, full healthy season, who has more of a realistic chance of getting a 1,000-yard season?
Ingram, 1,000%, in my opinion.
No hesitation. I like it.
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, in general, they both have. I mean, there's like a lot of mouths to feed in this offense in general. I do wonder if Ingram is going to be used more on the goal line too. So is he going to be the 1,000-yard guy, or is Sutton going to be the 1,000-yard guy and Ingram's going to be the 10-touchdown guy? I think that might be where I would land, but I definitely could see Ingram doing it, the 1,000 yards.
Interesting.
Wide receiver aficionado, what do you say?
I would actually side with you guys just because of I'm expecting Vele to be healthy this season. I do think he's going to take some of Cortland Sutton's targets away. I think Troy Franklin's rise this year will take some targets away as well. I mean, they're not going to take all of his targets, but those targets are meaningful when you're talking about 1,000-yard seasons. So, and just the way I view Evan Ingram in this offense and the way Sean Payton can use him.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Interesting conversation.
And I think that's the part too, is like if you do look at it, and I know we were kind of hating on the wide receiver room in general, but like, as we said, it's a diverse room. And if you look at it, there's a bit of some mouths to feed. And there's a lot of different things that they can do with it and how they want to use Marvin Mims with, yes, possibly the 1,000 scrimmage yards, right? Like the way that's maybe even, how we were probably hoping maybe RJ Harvey to a certain extent to come and maybe give him a bit of a redshirt year in a sense of scrimmage yards. But like, I mean, there's just a lot of players to be had here for possible opportunities and get better. And I think there's one aspect of going back to the wide receiver room that I think is going to be better in that second year in the system for some of these rookie wide receivers that were last year, and that is the screen game. Like the screen game is going to be exponentially better. So your power died?
Yeah, my power died.
It had nothing to do with the fact that, StreamYard hated the fact that you said that you would be disappointed in Vele.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say I'd be disappointed. I just said that it wouldn't matter as far as what I would think of him as for the future. That's all I said. At least I was trying to say that, and then my house died.
I don't know. It feels sort of like a coincidence, if you will, that you make a comment like that, and all of a sudden, just
I think he rage quit the episode.
We were getting to kind of wind down a little bit there, Brandon, but we're talking about the tight end room, and
yeah, I was listening.
Yeah, it's a bit of a barren room, but I mean, it's one that's still led by Evan Ingram, and there's at least versatility in the sense like you don't have Greg Dulcich lining up there, and you know exactly what you're going to be getting. You'll get some sets where Evan Ingram's on the field, Troutman's on the field, but talk through us about the tight end room.
I mean, for me, I'm just really excited to see what Evan Ingram brings to the offense. As far as everyone else, I think it's just more of let's make sure if we're running a set where there's just one tight end, Evan Ingram's going to be in there. More than likely, we're throwing the ball, and him and Sutton are going to be probably the main guys, right, catching the ball. And then as far as anyone else, it's like, okay, well, Evan Ingram, not the best blocker in the world. So if we are running two tight ends, if he is out there, who's the best blocker that we can throw on the other side or next to him? You know, throw him in the slot and bring in someone else. So, and just bring in the best blocker that you have. But I'm really excited to see what Evan Ingram brings to this team. I know you asked earlier who's more likely to have 1,000 receiving yards, him or Sutton. I would say Sutton, just because I think Evan Ingram is going to really help them in the red zone. I don't know. The big thing for me is who is going to be the guy on third downs. Like that to me is probably the more important question. They stalled a ton on third down, and Sutton was there last year. I feel like he was really the only option. If Evan Ingram can bring something on third downs, then that'd be great. But like to me, that's the one thing that I'm kind of more curious about is what can Evan Ingram do on third downs? We know he's going to be a big red zone target. We know he's going to get the ball there, but who's going to be the guy who's the go-to guy on third?
Yeah, and regardless of whether you hate the room, love the room, whatever, I do think third down or even the slot is going to be a very interesting way of how they want to use the room, specifically with Evan Ingram, right? Because Evan Ingram's going to be taking probably a decent chunk of that as far as some of the slot. Devon Bailey can operate that. Pat Bryant,
right.
Jordan's favorite wide receiver, can operate that. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. There was a question I think you asked, Jordan, that we should probably get Stoll's answer to. You asked us, what was it about the 1,000 yards?
Yeah, I said if both players, Evan Ingram and Courtland Sutton, theoretically healthy, full 17-game season, who's more likely to get that 1,000-yard receiving season?
Yeah, to me it'd be Sutton, for sure.
The Brandon mind meld is complete because that's exactly what I said. Is I think Evan Ingram's going to be more of a red zone guy.
Here's what I'll say. I wouldn't be shocked if there wasn't 1,000 receiving yards guy on the team at all. I could see a scenario. Now, look, if Sutton plays a whole year, I do think he hits 1,000. But I could see a scenario where Sutton's at 800-900, Mims is at 700-800, Ingram's at 800-900. They're all kind of right around there. Franklin or Bryant, whoever, I'm assuming that's going to be kind of the battle there. Is going to be between those two guys as a third receiver. So whichever one of those guys wins that battle, or maybe they split and they each get like 300 yards or 200 yards. That's kind of how I see the offense. I don't really see anyone separating themselves from the rest of the pack.
We got a super chat.
So,
the super chat.
We got a super chat, and I know Brandon Stoll, you are a huge Shohei Ohtani fan, and I know I'm a huge Shohei Ohtani fan. But thank you, Kodiak. By the way, love you, buddy. This is a great question. Thanks again for the super chat. Who has a bigger global presence as an athlete? Justin Jefferson if he were Chinese, or Shohei Ohtani? I mean, you would kind of want to go with Shohei Ohtani. But I mean, Brandon, what would you think?
Oh man, that's a fascinating question.
For me, I would say Shohei.
I mean, it's absolutely Shohei, right? Like he's like the equivalent of a all-star dual sport athlete. The way he plays baseball, it's kind of insane. but that's a hilarious question.
Let's throw in a wrinkle, though. Now, what if Bo Nix was Chinese? As David was alluding to. Or we can take it a step further. What if Sean Payton was Chinese?
I'm just going to slowly back away.
Thank you again, Kodiak, for the super chat. Shohei's incredible, man. Like, so like if there is a player right now that like is, you could argue, is almost like the face of sports, like, and probably should be the talk of a lot of faces of the sports, it would be Shohei. Like he completely changed baseball in like the sense of like almost back to like how you evaluate things in high school baseball, like how you could be a pitcher and a hitter. Sometimes even like you're starting to see it more prevalent in like college baseball now, but it's just like he's completely changed the game of how like MLB scouts like evaluate things.
Well, I would agree, but let's say in 10 years, how many two-way players are there? Or 20 years, how many two-way players are there? I don't think there will be. Like, at least not to this level, not even close. So I would say
it's a good.
This is more rare. Like what Shohei is doing is more rare than any other athlete has really ever done.
Professional athlete, obviously.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But no, I'm very fan. I'm a huge baseball fan myself, and so it's just right. And so it's just this one where it's like I'm very curious to see how it shakes it, because there's two ways to look at it, like exactly what you're saying, or there's just a huge kind of like influx of two-way players. Look,
Shohei Ohtani got me to become a baseball fan. Okay, so if he could do that, he's probably the greatest athlete of all time. Because now I am watching baseball almost every day. That and Cameron, you know me. Okay? Me saying I watch baseball every day. That's like to the point where like I'm actually watching other players play and not just Shohei.
Yeah,
like I'm actually interested in the All-Star game and what was going on today with who made the All-Star teams.
Yeah, or buying MLB The Show and actually being a regular.
Oh, I'm amazing at MLB The Show. I didn't know I was going to be that good, and I'm amazing at it.
Yeah. Oh man, thank you guys to everybody that hopped in the chat tonight. It was great. Kodiak, thank you so much, man, for that.
Appreciate it, Kodiak.
For that super chat. Again, to remind everybody, we are as you can see, we are taking super chats. Feel free to give us what you feel is your heart's content. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button for the MHRT Network page over there on YouTube. We are pushing to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And make sure you follow everybody that's in this stream here tonight. Make sure you follow Brandon_Stoll. Make sure you follow Jordan at Jordan T. Lopez and Brandon Miller PO. He's the only one that's on private because he's, he as you can tell, he looks a lot like the Brandon Miller, the basketball player. So it's really easy to distinguish between, it's really hard to distinguish between them. So if you hit the follow button, you may or may not get a follow request option. So, but make sure you follow Brandon at Brandon Miller PO.
Maybe I'll turn it off since we're going to be in the NBA offseason and I won't get people telling me that I ruined their parlay.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for hopping on it. You can also follow the show handle at Manely Broncos. Brandon Stoll, thank you so much for hopping on. There might be a few things in the works for you over here with the network maybe, but we'll definitely keep an eye out. Big basketball guru, huge basketball fan. If you guys missed it, we had a really good basketball talk at the very beginning, talking about the Nuggets, the moves that they made. And yeah, it was a great pod. Make sure you tune in next week. We're going to do another position deep dive. And until then, just never forget, of course, that it is always.
Let's go Broncos! God bless Bo Nix!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out.